Hello everybody, Woodjack Hex here, doing a limited set review for set 3, Armies of Myth, on Hex, TCG, MMO. Really excited to get into Sapphire. I think it's a very exciting, dynamic, limited shard. And just as a little preface, I am pretty much exclusively evaluating these cards from a limited standpoint, and what I mean by limited is sealed, gauntlet, draft, things of that nature. Um, so, super big picture stuff, like how cards are going to work in particular metas and constructed and things like that, aren't going to be focused on. It's mainly going to be a lot of like vanilla test stuff, like base power and toughness versus stats and threshold. Some of the archetypes that are kind of obvious and pushed, evaluating towards that end, and also how the cards play within their shards themselves. Essentially, the grading scale is going to be kind of like a classic American school grading scale, so like F to A. A C is going to be a card that you'll not really have a major issue having in your deck. It's not very exciting, but it fills a role or it fills a curve or something of that nature. Whereas an A is going to be probably the best card in the set, and possibly even one of the better cards in multiple sets. An A basically says I win the game. So obviously those cards are really rare, and then all the different margins in between. So let's go ahead. Card number one is Archnomancer or KO. I want to say Archaeomancer, but it's Archnomancer, phonetically, I guess. Anyway, it's a 5 cost, 3/3, double threshold, troop, Venom Mage. Venom is relatively synergistic in set 3. There's a lot of Venom troop types. When a spider enters play under your control, you may draw a card. So this card's uncommon, so you're not going to see a ton of them, but if the spider spawn's open, you should see one or two. Basically, the spider spawn deck is probably the most clear archetype in set 3. So, and this is a very good enabler for that. Obviously, being able to make, I think they're 2/1 unblockables. Also, triggering that and getting a card is kind of insane. So, the ceiling on this card is quite good. So, him being able to do all that, and then also a 3/3 is just fine for your kind of more control-ish type shells. Spider Spawn isn't necessarily an aggressive archetype. A lot of the key cards have more toughness than power, and that's because basically you want to just be able to prevent your opponent from attacking, control the game as as he top decks spiders. So anyway, it's very more defensive minded. So having a three toughness thing is just fine. That's a decent blocker. It's going to be able to block a lot of your opponent's stuff. Also, you don't really want to be attacking with this guy all that often because you kind of want him to sit back and gain you card advantage. So that being said, his power and toughness versus cost ratio is just fine, taking into account his enabling effects. So in Spider Spawn, obviously this is only a good Spider Spawn card. I'd say this card's definitely a B. If you're not in Spider Spawn, I would give this guy a D+. So balancing the two, I guess I give him a C-, but you're definitely going to want him if you're in Spider Spawn. Arcane Focus, a single cost, single threshold, basic action at common that says, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one of them into your hand, put the remaining card, I think there needs to be an S there, into your deck. Oh, no, it's not. Wait, put the top 2 cards. Okay, so it doesn't need an S. My bad. Look at the top 2 cards. Okay, so this isn't really card advantage because you have to pay this, and then you get to replace it with a card. So you're not really up a card. What you're up is selection. And in certain decks, if you're kind of more combo-y or you have a lot of actions or you have a key card you need to get your deck to work, this type of effect is fine. You're going to want to dig and gain card selection and stuff. This card kind of says cycle in a way, which is the Magic the Gathering term, but you do get that extra card to look at. So it's okay. I really think these people are going to try to make these work. They're going to load their deck up with them and just say, oh, well, I just played 4 of these and it really didn't impact the game that dramatically. I think you're going to know if you want this. Maybe if you have something that needs an action, it's a fine. If you have like an action, if actions trigger any kind of beneficial effect just by casting an action, playing multiples of these is fine because you'll get, card selection. You'll be triggering the action clause and whatever. You'll be able to set up, better plays because you have more access to card selection. Blah blah blah. But average case scenario, I'd say this card's pretty meh, so I'll give it a D+. Arcane Zephyr, single cost, single threshold, quick action, that's awesome. Target troop gets flight and spell shield this turn. So when I first looked at this card, I'm like, maybe it's kind of sideboardy, in case, say, you need to win a game with evasion, or you need it to kind of get your opponent with evasion, like making a troop flight as they're attacking with a flyer, just kind of getting them. Because it is quick action, it can kind of be used as a trick. It's pretty sweet. But then, really, we haven't seen this type of card before, because what you get is the flight, which is in and of itself probably not worth a whole card. Maybe it's on your sideboard. But you get the spell shield too. And though it's going to be a little hard to find the time that you get to use both of them at the same time. This card's going to be a total blowout if you're like in conjunction with another trick, and like you're both of you are playing out your combat tricks, and like this is your your last play, and just like anyway, it just could totally be a huge blowout. But most of the time, you're not going to be able to get the flight and the spell shield to be useful at the same time. But having the flexibility of choosing either one, you get both of them, but having the flexibility of, if you need one or the other, is pretty sweet. So I think this card is going to have a lot of main deck applications. I think it's going to be common in a game to want something to fly, and it's going to be common in a game to want to protect something with spell shield. So with that being said, I actually like this card quite a bit. It's a quick action and it's common. So you can see a lot of these in your Sapphire decks. So with that being said, I really like this card, and I think it's better than a C. I think the flexibility really is pretty awesome, and I'm excited to try it out, so I give it a C+. Augur of Sauron is a 6-cost double threshold legendary avatar of Insight troop, so he's an avatar, and he has flight, and you can see the top card of your deck, awesome, and you can play the top card of your deck, even better. So this card's amazing, super bomb all the way. I have to give him an A, because he really will win you the game. He can win you the game as a 4/5 flyer. He can win you the game with card selection. He can win you the game with card advantage. He does all of it. He's legendary, so you're hardly ever going to see him. If you do, congratulations. I'm not sure if this card's going to be worth a ton, because I don't know if it's good enough to make it into constructed. My guess is yes, but I'm not a constructed expert at all. So anyway, first pick this all the way, be totally happy. It's an A, multiple ways to win the game. It's all self-contained. Yeehaw, moving on. Brood Baron, a 5-cost single threshold 3/6, Ven and Cleric. So there we see Ven again. Here's what I love about this card, and some of you may not agree with me, but it says 3/6. It has 6 toughness with a legitimate attack power. This card is just a total house. He is a rare. It's important to note. Those are definitely some rare stats. Even if it was just vanilla 3/6 for 5, I would probably play that card in my control decks like all day. Just imagine if you had this card in Mill, like what a house this would be. But anyway, he says, at the start of your turn, create a copy of each egg and target opposing champion's deck and put them into their deck. So You know, you have 2 or 3 eggs in your opponent's deck. Now you have 6. Now you have 12. Now it's like 4 turns later. It's like they're almost guaranteed to get an egg. You know, it's just exponential. So this card's like a must kill from your opponent if you're in eggs. Now his stats are good enough, I think, to find its way into non-egg decks. So I'm gonna give him a C plus in stats. I really think 6 toughness. It just says no to so many attacks, so many attackers on your opponent's side that it's really good. He's a B plus. Well, no, I gotta give him a B in Spider. No, I gave that other card a B. So honestly, this is a B plus in Spider. It's almost as good as it gets in Spider Spawn. It doesn't generate eggs on its own, which is a little bit preventing it from being like an A in the Spider Spawn deck. So in Spider Spawn, super solid B. In non-Spider Spawn decks, I can give it a C plus. I think I can get behind those stats. And the fact that he's single threshold means you don't even have to be base Sapphire to play this troop. If you just need something to control the ground, this card can totally do it. I like it a lot. Good card. C plus overall. Cerulean High Counselor, single cost, single threshold, 0-1. Human Mage. Humans kind of, their era is a little bit over. Not really a whole lot of human synergy in set 3, but put a troop with cost equal or less than this troop's cost from your hand into play. Put this into your hand. This gets +1. So, this card is a very slow way to play cards for free. I would say it's not free because you're kind of dedicating a card and tempo to try to get stuff out. I mean, if you have a lot of time, or if you have like enter the battlefield things, or some way to kind of bounce things in and out of your hand, this card's okay. I don't like this guy. I like to play more proactive strategies. It's not clear that this card ever really does enough in a single game. I know there's going to be a combo or a sequence that makes this card really good. These kind of cards typically push you and trying to make it work, trying to do something broken. But yeah, if all you did was play this guy the first 4 turns and maybe get a 2 and a 3 out, by turn 5 or whatever, like, yeah, I guess you could spend your resources on other stuff. In a super aggro deck, I guess this may be able to allow you to play like 2/2 drops a turn early or something. I don't know. It's not really going to help you cheat out big stuff because it's just too slow. Because you get summoning sickness each time you recast them. So it's really like every other turn you gain 1. You get to reduce something by 1 cost, but then you have to cast this guy. So like you have to cast him and have enough resources open to cast another thing. I don't. It just seems like a lot. The setup is just too high to get the benefit. I don't like this type of card. Hopefully someone proves me wrong because it'd be interesting to see this guy work. I give him a D plus. I guess that's not fair. If he does, okay, I give him a C. All right. Cripple. 3 cost single threshold, quick action at common, and he's a rare, so you're never gonna see him. Okay, I'm done. All right, Cripple. Quick action, 3 cost single threshold. Target troop gets -4 attack. So this is a pretty good trick. Your opponent's happily attacking him with his stuff because he has profitable attacks, and then this card says no, and kind of nerfs it. Now it doesn't make a bad troop. It doesn't help you win combat with a lesser troop, so it has a little bit more of a setup cost. The problem is, the reason why this card's a little better than at first glance is that Sapphire doesn't really have tricks. Really, they're kind of more control, tempo minded than combat minded, if that makes sense. So this is kind of like as good as it gets as far as combat tricks. Occasionally, too, you're going to cast this to not lose. It's not how this card's supposed to be done, but I've had plenty of games where I just had to nerf a flyer so that I could stay alive and try to top deck out of a bad situation. It's probably worst case scenario. But, worst case scenario would be you just can't cast this card. It has no applicable effect, but chances are you're going to want to reduce the power of something at some point in the game. Is it worth a whole card? I would say, generally speaking, no. But bring it in from the board just to give you some time. It is permanent, so it's kind of like pseudo removal in the way that like you kind of make their best attacker not attack anymore. That's cool. So it's like inefficient. It can't be considered removable, but it can be considered like pseudo removal enough like um, to. I mean, in worst case scenario, you have to play a couple of these just to have some way to interact with your opponent's stuff. You're not, in a horrible spot. So, with all that stuff being said, I think this is probably a classic C minus. Like, it's not. You're gonna have enough reasons to play this to not feel horrible and embarrassed playing it, but it just doesn't really do enough. It's kind of you're not excited to play it. And a controlling shell where you don't get a lot of removal. It just does its job, kind of mediocrely, but not. You're gonna play it in your deck and be semi-happy. So C minus. Cyclone Shaman, a 4-cost double threshold Coyote Mage that 2 power and 4 defense, and has flight. And its text reads Prophecy. When this enters play, the next troop in your deck gets. When this enters play, put target action with cost equal or less than this troop's cost from your graveyard into your hand. So, I think the right way to evaluate this card is just to think of it as a 2/4 flyer for 4 that's going to be kind of require you to be in base Sapphire. Flight troops are very good in Sapphire, generally, because you're just swinging in the air and you're kind of like you put your opponent on the clock and you're manipulating their tempo and time, and you're just basically trying to win a game through tempo and evasive attacks and countering spells and whatever. So for that, I think a 2/4 flyer is just fine. Now, say in that archetype where you're trying to maintain tempo and attack in the air, um, bouncing back or getting back your bounce spells is pretty sweet. You just get to keep the attack party running. You get to keep that clock on your opponent. He finally gets an answer. You just bounce it. Say another flying troop or whatever, or like mid combat. The combat like fight type card, just bounce it in response. I guess that wouldn't work anyway. But you know what I mean. Like essentially keeps the party going. You're getting stuff out. You're helping. Normally tempo type strategies require a lot in top decks because you need to, draw. You're not going to get the perfect starting hand to just keep attacking every turn. So having that depth to be able to get stuff back from your graveyard is pretty good. And a lot of the bounce stuff is under 4, so it is the next troop in your deck. So it's not yeah. So with that being said, you kind of I don't know. I think the bounce that I've seen or the pseudo removal, the kind of stuff that Sapphire has access to, is right around the 2 cost. So chances are your next troop is going to be 2 or greater. There's not a whole lot of 1-drops in Sapphire, so that's cool. So yeah, you're probably legitimately going to be able to rely on his prophecy, so long as you get a troop, granted. But if you're not getting a troop, maybe you're getting the bounce that you needed anyway. So it's kind of like win-win either way. So, but basically at the end of the day, this most of the time is just going to be a 2/4 flyer for 4, which is great, and I give this card a C plus. If you can build around him, I think you can get up to a B in a very, very few decks, but I'd give him a C plus just on his base stats and the clause that he's really good at once in a while. Devoted Infuser, 3-cost, double threshold, uncommon, Necrotic Cleric, 3/2. 3/2 for 3s are fine. A little rough on the double threshold, but aggressively costed, so this guy looks like he wants to attack. Basic for 1-shot, shift. At the start of each opposing champion's turn, ready this. So, that's going to be great. Giving something kind of like indirect steadfast is pretty awesome. Also, say you have a card with an activated ability that you need to exhaust it for. This card just allowing to get that done twice in a turn exchange is pretty sweet. So there's going to be definitely some build around me around his shift ability. Shift in and of itself is super powerful. Just the built-in flexibility, making this card better in late game. such scenarios is pretty sweet. I like all that. Just it's saying shift makes me really like this card, and it having pseudo steadfast in and of itself when it's only a 3/2 for 3 is fine. You know, you can attack and trade up or trade down, whatever. Fine card. There's really I can't find any fault with this card anywhere, so I'll give it a C plus. Entangling Webs, 2 cost single threshold, quick action at common. As an additional cost to play this, exhaust a ready troop you control. Alright, so is that good or bad? Sometimes you're not going to want to exhaust anything. It's kind of a little bit more when you're ahead, but maybe you have spiders or tokeny generation things or ineffective blockers or whatever. I don't know. Maybe. Hey, obviously it's a hit, so it better be pretty good what the effect is. Exhaust 2 target troops. They can't ready during the controller's next ready step. Okay, so you're trading a small tempo hit on your end for a large tempo gain against your opponent. I mean, one troop not being able to ready is a big deal, and we've seen that a lot in set 1 and 2. Now you add in that it can be 2, that can be your opponent's whole board. So yeah, you took your thing, maybe out of attack, but you could do it on your opponent's turn, so you could go ahead and tap the thing while tapping their stuff down, and then the exhausted troop that you exhausted doesn't even matter because they don't have any attackers, so you're really not even taking effectively a tempo hit. And then you can just swing with your team or control the game to set up a better, next turn, whatever. Like, card's super flexible, super powerful effect. It does require that you have a troop, I think, unless that clause goes away if you don't have one. I think, no, it's part of the cost, so you have to have a troop. So that's a bit of a setup cost, but really you don't want to play this unless this is an offensive-minded card. Like, you want to be able to tap your opponent's stuff down for a couple turns so that you can increase your clock and win the game. So I really like this card a lot. I think it's going to be, it's a little, Sapphire isn't inherently aggressive, so it's going to be a great support card for like your more mid-rangey aggro decks. But I think even if you're attacking with some big, venom kind of spider squad minded stuff, like they're still getting to attack, get through twice in most situations. That's going to do some damage, and then maybe finish them off with spiders or whatever. But this card is super sweet. Really like it. B minus. Epiphany, 4 cost, single threshold, quick action at common. Target champion draws 2 cards. So this will net you 1 card because you have to spend a card in order to get 2. So you're only up 1. It is a quick action, so you can do it on your, and you can leave up a counter spell or something. And then if you have nothing to counter, you can cast this, so like you didn't waste the turn leaving up resources. So the quick action is a big deal. Card draw at quick action is just so much better because it doesn't punish you for leaving up resources as much. And the fact that, I mean, you are going to want to draw cards. I don't know. This seems pretty stock. I think this card could easily cost 3. 4 is kind of a lot to play. And I do know that drawing cards in set 1 and 2 was really a luxury. I often found that with champion abilities and with the kind of aggressive nature of set 1 and 2, you didn't really always have time to draw cards. I think this set's going to be a little slower. I've only drafted it a few times during test server, so it's too early to say, but I do think this card is going to be fine. Like if you can, especially like in your control shells, drawing cards is something you really want to do, and you're probably going to be able to afford the time to do it. And all other shells, it's maybe not quite enough. It's a little expensive, but if you need it, you'll be happy. C minus. Frigid Buffalo, 2/3 for 3, single threshold. So I think the value of 2/3s are going to go up in Sapphire decks, mainly because they're a little more control minded. They lend themselves to like the spider spawn type strategy. So it having 3 toughness is just fine. I always consider a 2/3 for 3 as passable, like your stock. It's like a stock C minus card. Chances are you don't play it because you won't need to, but it's not embarrassing if you do. I think a 2/3 is going to be a little better than in set 1 and 2. But I think the overall power level in this set is going to make you pretty de-incentivize the playing of vanilla 2-3 for 3. That's like, to be seen. So anyway, I give this card a C minus. You'll need it. It's fine. There's not a lot of 3/3s for 3 floating around, so chances are this is going to stop your opponent's 2 drops, maybe even their 3 drops. These cards get really good in multiples because they, can gang block and take stuff out. So still, you don't want a ton of these in your deck because it just doesn't do enough. Harbinger of Hester. It's a rare. It's a 5/8, 7 cost, double threshold. So this is a big 7 drop. Your curve topper, the thing that you need to have you win the game if you can actually get the 7. Let's see if he does that. When this attack exhausts up to 5 target troops. Alright, well, count this guy in to do 5 damage, because, in the most games, your opponent doesn't even have 5 troops out. So, this is quite good. It basically says unblockable, so 5/8 for 7 unblockable. Yeah, that's fine. It's also rare, so you're not going to see him a lot. But I would definitely first pick this early on in the set to see just how good he is. But there's more. You have a 20% chance, if you have a single Sapphire threshold, that at the start of each opposing champion's turn, if this is in the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal this, exhaust a random troop that champion controls. So, you have a 20% chance, so there's nothing mathematically saying that this can't trigger every time he's in your top 5 cards, so sequentially, 5 opportunities at 20%. The average case scenario is it only triggers once, but if it triggers at all, that's a free exhaust, and there's really nothing wrong with that. So that's cool. That's just kind of gravy. So really, the way to think of this card is, as a finisher. It's not just him that gets through; it's the rest of your board. So you have 2 or 3 troops out, even if they're all 1/1s. That's pretty good. It's a lot of damage coming through. So this card's quite good, quite rare, and that he's rare. But all things considered, if you get him, I'd first pick him. It's probably give him a B, a solid B. Incubation Webs, 4-cost double threshold basic action, add uncommon. Exhaust target opposing troop. It gets at the start of your turn, exhaust this. Alright, so you exhaust it, and then when it's your turn, it gets exhausted. And then create a spiderling egg and put it. No. It gets. So when it's on your opponent's thing, it's still talking to me at the start of your turn. No, because it would change the troop text for the owner, whoever owns the card. So, yeah, okay. So you cast it on your opponent's thing, and then it gets exhausted on his turn. So, and it exhausts it when you play it. In your turn because it's a basic action. So it's just exhausted forever. All right, that's pretty sweet. Okay, so it's kind of like pseudo removal. The card's not gone, but it basically can't do anything because it's exhausted. And then you get create a spiderling egg and put it into your deck. So it puts a spiderling in their egg in their deck and takes out basically their best thing can't attack or block. That's pretty sweet. So, yeah, that's great. This is, Sapphire doesn't have the best removal. They don't have really just kill that thing. This is kind of what it does. Take it out of the game, make it ineffective, and then, progress a strategy that is very Sapphire in this set, which is spiderling eggs. Not a whole lot of bad things to say about this. I like it a lot. Occasionally, the troop being left behind is going to be an issue. You would have rather just killed it, but that's kind of been pretty fringe. Probably, at least in set 1 and 2, it's probably going to be pretty fringe in set 3 as well. So, yeah, solid card. I'll give it a B. And you got Dreamweaver, a 4-cost, double threshold, Coyote Warlock with flight, legendary, 3/4. So, that is as good as it gets for a flying troop as far as cost to stats. So that in and of itself makes this card a B in my book. But it does more. When this enters play, the next card in your deck gets cost -1 or greater. You can play this for free. So it's going to, basically your next troop gets to get played for free. There's not any troops that cost 0, so Oh, it's the next card. Okay, so it's card not troop. So that could be better or worse. Like, um, it does have that clause so that it doesn't trigger on your resources. So that's nice. So you could possibly get a one drop that was going to cost you one anyway, but you still get to play it for free, so that's kind of good. It also, yeah, it sits in your hand, so it gets probably a tacked on text that says you can play this for free or cost zero. Well, I don't know what that looks like because I didn't get a chance to play this until silver, but um, that's great. I think this card is going to be constructed playable. I also think that it's absolutely limited playable. It's a bomb. It's not. It didn't quite say win the game. A 3/4 flyer for 4 is incredibly aggressively costed, but you know it's a slow enough clock to really just dominate the game. And it's not like you get that prophecy every turn. Like it's one turn. It's obviously a lot for a little. That's what makes this card excellent. But I'd have to give it probably a B plus. Not quite an A yet, but solid card. Definitely first pick. It's probably going to be worth a bunch of money. Yeah. Lightning Brave, a 3/2 4-cost single threshold quick troop Coyote Ranger with flight. So this is again going to be a card that gets passed a lot because it doesn't say anything other than flight, and people think boo, I want to draft an archetype and do all this fancy stuff. But really, a three. I mean, if this was a 3/1 for 4, I think he'd be fine. The fact that he's evasive and has 3 power, it's going to put a clock in your opponent. It's going to put pressure on him. I mean, I would totally play 4 of these in the deck. It's just great. These cards always get undervalued. Like I think a 3/2 for 5 would be fine with flight. The fact that it's 4, it's like about as good as you could get for a common. So the fact you're going to see a lot of these, the fact that it's Coyote and there's a ton of Coyote synergy stuff. I think this card's great. I really do. I think maybe not first pickable, first 5 picks, totally fine. This card's great. I give it a solid B minus. Lunacy, 2-cost single threshold quick action, Chaos Touch. Bury the top 5 cards of each opposing champion's deck. So in a dedicated mill card, it's fine because it mills. Other than that, it's pretty meh. I don't like it. It's quick action, so maybe it's a good mill finisher. I don't know. But all that being said, this card doesn't have an application unless you're in mill. I don't know how strong mill is. I don't think it's going to be as good as set 1 and 2, so really don't like this card. I give it a D minus. Moral Mage is a rare 4-cost double threshold troop necrotic mage. When this deals damage to a champion, draw a card for each damage dealt. Pretty tough to pull off as a 1/3. A 1/3 that also cost you most likely a whole turn. Can't get it out early when if your opponent stumbles, maybe you could push it through for damage easier. No, it's a 4-drop and it's a double threshold, so this card is really awkward to cast. So really, this card's, I mean, it's not unlikely he's going to get through without the help of tricks or whatever. But he does have the shift ability. He can give his ability to something else, and so chances are, just imagine if you put it on your Lightning Brave, all of a sudden you're drawing cards. You're drawing 3 cards a hit. That is huge. I mean, I think the reason this card is rare is that its application. If you were to shift this on something that your opponent just can't deal with, like not only are you getting through for damage, but you're just drawing an insane amount of cards. Like that's too good of a ceiling for anything other than rare. Like if the set was full of these, like a common or uncommon, it would just be kind of busted. And I do know that drawing cards for damage is just like really just put your opponent out of contention really fast. So it'd just be way too powerful. So it's a good thing that this card's rare. It does have a setup cost, and its ceiling is high, but really its floor is pretty low. You just can't get through, and it just does nothing. So that's it really makes this a 4-cost 1/3, so that's pretty bad. So I don't know. All in all, I think I can give this. I think this card's not going to be in draft. It's just going to be too hard to set them up. It doesn't do enough for 4 resources the turn you play it, but its ceiling's really high. So I'll give this card a C for that. Otherwise, it'd be a little lower. Moving on. Nansk Webguard is a 2-cost single threshold 1/4 Venom Rogue, Big Ol' Spider. When a spider enters play under your control, you may exhaust target troop. So a little bit of a win more. I mean, you're going to be exhausting stuff most likely on your opponent's turn because what's going to trigger this is your spider spawns. So maybe it just kind of slows them down, slows down their attack so that you can win with little spiderlings. That's kind of cool. What I really like about this card is that it's a 1/4. So you play this on 2, you're just trying to survive until you can dominate with spiders and stuff. So it's a super good kind of structural role player card in the control-ish spider spawn shell. So for that, I really like this card, and I'm gonna give him a C+ for that because even in Venom is probably a C+2, but I really think I really love having 1/4s for 2 that can attack because it's a 2-drop. They're actually 2-drops. It says no to possibly your opponent's next 2 troops as far as getting through because of the 4 toughness, and it gives you time to set up your plays. It's so important in draft. In a limited environment, you need time. You know, you're not always going to get the great draws, and you're not always going to hit your resources when you need them, and all this sort of stuff. And this card just buys you time and can do stuff on its own. So, really amazing, and the Spider Shell is just a perfectly designed card for what that deck's trying to do. Really love this card. I'm gonna go ahead and give him a C+, even if you're not in Spider Spawns. I think you're gonna want this card. Moving on. Oculus of Azeroth, or Azathoth, because Azeroth is probably copyrighted by Blizzard. 6 cost, double threshold, troop, chaos touch, flight. When this is ready, it has spell shield. So, opponents, when you cast it, your opponents say next turn your opponent can't deal with this, can't deal with the 4 damage or whatever. No, it doesn't matter because then, well, basically this has a little bit of clause for when you cast them, it can only die to quick speed removal, because your opponent can't deal with it on his turn. He has basic speed removal, so this thing's probably going to get to attack. That's pretty cool. Obviously, if you can get this thing steadfast, it's pretty sweet. But 4/4 for 6 is serviceable. If this is your curve topper finisher, awesome. I think this card is going to be undervalued because people just want more. They want more than 4 power, 4 toughness out of a flyer for 6, which is just still blows my mind. I think that's totally serviceable and fine. So anyway, I think this card's good. I do think he is a little prohibitive. Like, if you get him in your opening 5, you're going to be kind of sitting back. It's not going to be able to realize its potential. It's got a little bit of survivability. If it just sits there and you need to block, your opponent's going to have a tough, can't get rid of it, really. So that's cool. So it's a flexible card. I like him a lot. I'm actually going to give this a C+. This is way better than your stock card. But I think a lot of people are going to look at this like a D. I think they're wrong. All right, move on. Psionic Arcalite, 5-cost single threshold troop, necrotic mage, 2/5. Exhaust this guy or gal, and bury cards target champion's deck equal to troops attack. So it mills them for 2 if you buff her up. Mills them for more. But if you buff her up, you're probably gonna want to attack her unless you're attack with her unless you're like a super mill dedicated deck, which I still don't know how good mill is. And then you could shift it onto something that presumably could mill them for more, but then you're probably going to want to attack with that anyway. If it said toughness, this card would be pretty sweet, but it doesn't. So it's just a weird counterintuitive thing, like taking a good attacker and not attacking with it to mill. I don't know, man. It's a 2/5. Its 5 toughness is going to be okay. You might just want it for its toughness in your control shells. With a secondary, kind of manipulate with your opponent's deck a little bit, but I don't know if mill's going to be good enough to just throw 5 of these in a deck. It is common, so you can give it a shot. It is a secondary. Could be a secondary win con. Could maybe if you get like 5 of these, it could, just mill your opponent out. But does cost 5, so you're not really going to get going until like halfway through the game, 3/4 of the way through the game. So I don't know, not a whole lot. I'm not excited about cards like this, even with shift, which is kind of disappointing. So give this card a C-. Psychic Torment, 2 cost, single threshold concept, chaos test, and it's a uncommon. When opposing champion is dealt damage, bury a card from the top of their deck for each damage dealt. So again, it's like another counterintuitive card where like you're getting damage through, so you're head on board, so you're going for the whole traditional win con of just killing your opponent. But then this kind of has like you're doing some damage or you're milling some cards. I don't know. It's like it doesn't just say mill on its own; it has a setup cost. So even in your dedicated mill decks, this card could be bad. I don't like this card. I'm gonna give it a D minus. Moving on. Replica reinforcements. Two cost, basically option. Rare. Okay, so we're not gonna see a lot of these. Create a replica of target troop you control, and each troop you control that shares a trait with it, and put those troops into your hand. So, yeah. So in your tribal decks, you can draft tribal. This card's great. If not, it's just kind of like what you expect to pay to replicate something. Replication effects are better in long games, and after you've kind of like traded and you've gotten some removal from your opponent, and then this kind of like wins the resource war. Just being able to create an awesome troop that your opponent now has to deal with it twice effectively. So I like that. The ceiling's pretty high on it. I think it's just fine in slower formats, which I think this format's going to be a little slower to play one of these. So that being said, the ceiling's really high, and the floor is relatively high too. So I'll give this card a C. Moving on. Reprocessor is a 1/2/2, or it's a 2 cost, double threshold, 1/2 dwarf warlock. Will he make bots? Okay, said I wasn't going to talk about constructed. All right, enemies are rare, and says at the start of your turn you may transform another target artifact or troop you control into a warbot. So that or troop is a big deal because now all of a sudden this can go in any deck that can cast them. So that's pretty sweet. Warbots aren't bad troops. I mean, paying 5 for a 3/3 is bad, but upgrading a 2-drop or upgrading. Okay, you can't upgrade himself, but otherwise that card would be kind of sweet. Like a 2-drop that can turn into a 3/3 the next turn. That's pretty cool. But so you need another troop out, but. Sometimes this card's going to be bad, but worst case scenario is a 1/2 for 2. I mean, that's hard to cast. He's also rare, so they're not going to see him a lot. But I think this card's fine. I give him a C+. I mean, I think it's not a stretch to see that this is going to upgrade something at some point. And then it's a May clause too, so you don't even have to. I mean, and doesn't really have a target on it. So it's not a big enough effect where your opponent's going to want to just kill this. So chances are he gets to do his thing at least once. I like this card. C+. Moving on. Green Red Infiltrator, 2 cost, single threshold, troop, veteran ranger. It's a 1/1, 1/1 for 2. Normally horrible. It's a common, so you're going to see a lot of this card, so hopefully it's not horrible. Let's see. Let's flight. Now, 1/1 flyers for 2 are hard to analyze because, how many games have we all played where we just ignored a 1/1 flyer? Sure, it hit us for 4 or 5 damage, but we were casting 3/4s and 4/5s and, killing big threats, and this thing just kind of put us on a 20-turn clock, and we just kind of went, whatever. I don't know. Some of the analogs, that were playable in sets 1 and 2, they normally, like, when they died, they give you a card, or, had some extra effect tacked on to them that made them kind of worth it. I mean, I do think some decks are just going to want 1/1 flyers. I mean, 1/1 flyer is a lot better than a 1/1 ground troop. I mean, infinitely better in my book. So, but anyway, let's see what it does. When this deals damage to an opposing champion, which it probably will, because it's going to be hard for your opponent to answer back with their own flyer or, some really... They're not going to feel too good about killing this with the removal spell. So anyway, when this deals damage to an opposing champion, create 2 Spiderling eggs for that champion and put them into the deck. So I did make a Spider Swan deck in test server. These guys were pretty pretty reliable engine for that because, if you get them in your opening hand, you're swinging with them on turn 3. They normally put a couple eggs in. Honestly, they probably get through a few times. So we talked about that 20-turn clock being pretty lame. Well, now you're adding eggs in their deck, so it's like now you have their deck is kind of getting stacked against your opponent, and it's doing damage. Pretty sweet, pretty strong enabler. I think this card's. I'm gonna give it a C, just because you don't even need to be in spiders for this card to be good. If you have other ways to like multiply the eggs or get bonuses when spiders are cast, all that kind of stuff, this card's solid B minus as an early drop enabler for all that stuff. So, I'm gonna give this card a C plus. Yeah, I'm gonna give this card a C plus because he's fine even if you're not in spiders. Like the spider leg eggs still might trigger and you might get a troop out of it. And if it said get a 2/1, if it said get a 2/1 and a 1/1 flyer, or get a 2/1 unblockable and a 1/1 flyer for 2, I would be like, dude, that card's super B range, B plus, but RNG tacked onto it. But I like it. I like it a lot. I give it a C plus. Sacred Seekers, 5 cost, single threshold, troop, Coyote, 3/4, Coyote Allegiance, gotta have Coyotes. When the center's play, draw a card. Sweet. It's kind of like the analog to the Artifact one in sets 1 and 2 that had, Artifact Allegiance, more or less. But it costs 1 more, so I don't know. But it has better stats. So I would rather have a 3/4 than a 2/3. Coyote's a big deal in this tribal environment, so that has to put that into consideration to its grade. It's common, so it's going to be a card you have a lot of access to in your Coyote decks. You're only going to want to play this in your Coyote decks, but anyway, I like this card a lot. I think it's worth it. It's definitely a kind of a raw definition of a C. Like a 3/4 for 5 is fine-ish. And the fact that it's going to be, most likely if you're playing this card, it's going to be better than that. It's going to net you a card. It's pretty sweet. I'm still going to give it a C, though. I think if it was vanilla, I'd probably give it a D+. It's serviceable, but not great. So, yeah. But its ceiling is it's gonna be alright. You're going to play it on a lot of Coyote decks. So, I'm comfortable giving it a C. Scrap Rummager, 3 cost, single threshold, troop, dwarf cleric. It's a 1/2, so better be good. Target champion draws a card. Whoa, that's all it said. This card would be like B plus. But there's more. That champion chooses and discards a card. So it is target champion. So maybe if you're in a mill strategy, no, you're still not going to want to give your opponent selections. Never mind, scratch that idea. So anyway, it lets you rummage. It's a perfect cost for a rummager. You don't want to pay more than 4 just because you keep kind of a tempo hit playing this card, a development hit, and the trade-off is card selection. So, yeah, in your controller shells or your combo-y type shells where you're trying to set up board states and situations, you need card selection. This card helps you get there. It's not a good blocker on his own, but typically you're only playing this card if you really want to turn him on a few turns, like you need him, so you're probably not going to block anyway. So, yeah, it's fine. C. I don't know how important card selection is going to be in this draft set yet. It's not always a good effect. You don't always want to rummage, but I think he's good enough. I think he's going to feel like a C plus to a B minus when you really need him. He's going to probably not make the deck oftentimes when you don't. So yeah, I'll give him a C. Slaughter Gears Innovation. It's a rare. 5 cost, single threshold. Basic action. Socketable major. So as far as I know, we didn't get any socket powers. So you guys know what the majors are. Transform target artifact you control, or in your hand, nice flexibility, into a Warhulk. What's a Warhulk? 5/5 Trampler. With all the socketed powers of this. This is a super balmy, basically an aura, right? That's kind of how I think of it. No, it's better than aura, because, well, it's a little worse than an aura. No, it's better than an aura because you could have an artifact out that isn't a troop, and this could turn into a Warhulk. So, it's an artifact aura. Listen, it has a setup cost, is what I'm trying to say. You need something this can target. I mean, for 5 mana resources, I would rather have a troop personally, because sometimes you just gotta play something. You gotta have a board state, and like if this is your turn on 5, now we should have a bunch of artifacts. Cool. If I mean we don't have Bertram anymore, so we don't really have a reliable source of artifacts. This card is very situational in this draft environment. Like artifacts aren't that great. Yeah, there's some troops floating around, but it's not really a thing anymore. So it's not like if in set 1 and 2 it'd be like, oh, this card is just sick. What a push card. Like bots just got way better. But it's not really a thing anymore. And so now you're gonna have like a normal amount of artifacts floating around. And this is, if you can set it up, yeah, you got a 5/5 with some crazy major socketed power. That's insane. But come on, it's not always gonna happen. It's gonna be a dead card in your hand quite a bit. And it's a rare, so it's not like, you can build a deck around it. I don't know. I have to give this card a C plus, mainly because a 5/5 Warhulk with the socketed ability would be like an easy B plus card, or a solid B. But the setup cost definitely brings it down. It's not guaranteed, but it's a powerful enough effect and it's rare, so C plus. Smirking Trickster, 2/1 for 2, single threshold, quick troop. Ooh, quick troop. I love seeing that. We never get to see that. Quick troop, yay. Coyote Mage. When this enters play, look at target champion's hand. Listen, man, we need 2-drops in decks. It's just a fact of limited. The fact that this says Coyote means this is a synergistic 2-drop in the Coyote deck. And information is huge. Honestly, you see their hand, you get out a notebook, you write it all down, and you don't play into this known stuff anymore. That's a huge advantage. Like, one of the biggest skill testing things of 2CGs is, whoever plays around stuff better and creates lines around possibilities that, your opponent couldn't see. That's a major way to push a skill edge. Like, you don't necessarily need that skill if you know what they have. You just got to take the time to write it down, or if you have a good memory, just remember it. And the fact that it's a 2-drop, it's got sweet. C plus. I love it. Moving on. Spider Nest. 2. Single threshold, basic action, target opposing troop gets, when this becomes exhausted, create 3 spiderling eggs and put them into your deck. So, I wish this card moved some text around and said, exhaust one of your things, put 3 spider eggs into your opponent's deck, and then all of a sudden you have an engine. They just, it de-incentivizes your opponent from attacking, I guess, or if it has activated ability, or exhausted activated ability, it maybe de-incentivizes them for a little bit. But 3 what if cards, RNG possibilities, isn't really that strong of a detriment. Like if your opponent has a 5/5, that's swinging at you every turn, he's like, all right, cool, fine, you get your spiders, but I'm still probably going to win the game with this 5/5 if this is the best answer you have. So it doesn't really get you anywhere, So even in spiders, I didn't even play this card in my spiders one deck. Just didn't do enough. Felt like a dead card, and I gotta give this card a D minus. Moving on. Suffocate, quick action, double threshold, 4 cost, common. Ooh. Interrupt target opposing card. That is sweet. So it's one more than a counter spell, or counter magic, but that's great. That's great. I love it. Create 2 spiderling egg for that card's controller and put them into their deck. So you're paying 1 extra for your counter magic, but you're putting a couple spiderling eggs. So if I don't think we get counter magic, we don't get counter magic again this set. So this is your kind of stock counter spell, and it throw some eggs in their deck. Is that worth a whole resource? Well, sure, in a vacuum. Is holding up 4 resources pretty prohibitive? Yeah, it totally is. There's a lot of things you want to counter normally coming down around turns 4 and after. Yeah. So is it a big deal? I don't know. So anyway, this card I gotta give it a C just because you need counter spells in sets, and this is something you're gonna play and you're gonna need it. I don't. The spiders sometimes make you happy, sometimes they don't. Whatever. I'd rather have this just be counter magic, but this is a thematic set, so cool. Whatever. I get it. C. Zizergy. Single cost, single threshold, constant. When you play an action, all your cards with the same name in all zones cost -1. So, yeah, this is rare. This is like a build around me constructed card. Not a whole lot of, not going to have a whole lot of applications and draft. Now, playing this on turn one in a deck that has, I don't know, 6 or 7 actions in it, it's fine. Is it worth a card? No, because most actions are pretty affordable anyway. Yeah, it's not really a draft card, so that's probably enough. I'll give it a D. I'll give it a D in draft. If you're playing 12 to 13, I don't think Hex is a game where you want to be playing 12 to 13 actions, in your deck. Like, it's just not quite there yet. With champion abilities that reward troops, it's a very limited's already a very troop-based type game. You throw in the fact that Hex just has a lot of aggressive cards and champion abilities that reward troops. You gotta play 16 troops in a deck, I found. So this definitely rewards actions. It's gonna be a really fun, probably constructed card for years to come, but and drafted to D. Moving on. Throwback. Quick action, 2 cost, single threshold, common. Target troop gets -1 attack. Okay. I need a lot more. Put it into controller's hand. Yay! We got there. Nerf it. Throw it back. It's just like, no thank you. Little, baby powder on the pin pan. Slap it. Throw it. Slap it. Try not to be too explicit because like could be for kids. But basically, it's just kind of saying, no. Talk to the hand. See you later. This card is great. I think it's a Temple Plus play. The nerf is just gravy. C plus. Thunderfield Elder, 3/2, 3 cost, single threshold troop, Crayola Mage, at rare. Sad this card's rare. This just seems so bad. This would be like my favorite card in the set if it was uncommon. A little too good to be uncommon, but anyway, that's prophecy. When this enters play, the next troop action. Action. No. This isn't my favorite card. It's the other card that looks just like him. Okay. Anyway, moving on. When this card enters play, the next action in your deck gets 1. You play this, copy it. Sweet. Alright, here's the deal with this card. A 3/2 for 3 is fine. Bam. Okay? The fact that you can copy like your removal or your bounce or your counter magics, super sweet. That is pure gravy. This card is completely constructed playable, but I'm not going there. And it's like card advantage, it's resource advantage, it's just a whole crap ton of advantage, and a troop that's already has a fine cost for its stats. So, worst case scenario, this is a 3/2 for 3 in your deck. No big deal. Chances are it hits something. It's the next. You know what? It's the next actions. You just need an action in your deck to make this card good. Anyway, awesome. I give this card a B-. Thunderfield, Enchanter, 6 cost, double threshold troop, Crayola Mage, common, 4/5, prophecy. When this enters play, the next troop in your deck gets spell shield. So, yeah, you want to put big things. Spell shield's good on pretty much anything with 3 more, with like 3 power and toughness or greater. The problem I have with this card is that it costs 6, so like the game has kind of already been established at that point. A 4/5 for 6 is serviceable if it has an effect, and this effect is decent. Spell Shield. Your opponent's probably already played out his removal. If he was holding a removal card and you totally hit Jin and get your other 6 drop with this, and it becomes good Spell Shield, and your opponent can't deal with it, that will win you the game. It's a lot of RNG. Spell Shield isn't very proactive. I like to see proactive prophecy things because prophecy is already RNG, so it's like the risk reward ratio isn't quite there. I mean, he's probably going to do something because it's like the next troop. You know, chances are you're going to have more troops in your deck at least, but not all of them are going to necessarily benefit from Spell Shield. I mean, Spell Shield is a benefit, but it's not necessarily going to change the course of the game. So all those factors in play, a lot of times it's just going to be an overcosted 4 or 5. C minus. Letterfield Seer, 1 cost, single threshold common, 1/1 prophecy. When this enters play, the next action in your deck gets draw a card. That's sweet. 1/1 for 1 are kind of bad, so that's kind of like not worth a card. Then it kind of replaces itself if you have an action that you can play. So it's kind of a setup cost, you know, because you have to get the action, and then you got to be able to play it. So you might not see the card back for quite some time. Probably is good to see it back. This card's a horrible. It's not a horrible top deck if you already have actions in your hand. Getting a card could be fun. It says Coyote, so he's going to have some synergies. Trying to talk up this card as much as I can. C minus, whatever, moving on. Tireless Researcher, 2/3 for 4, single threshold troop, dwarf mage. When this readies, draw a card. So the problem with this card is that it costs 4. If it costs 3, you can see a lot of situations in the first few turns where he gets to attack, even if your opponent, you know, just blocks damage and nothing dies, like you get that card. Obviously, if you can invest another card to where this guy gives him evasion or flight or, you know, buff him somehow, if he's, you know, the best attacker, he's just like, you know, getting way ahead, drawing cards and doing damage. Setup cost is relatively high. He is common, so I think people are going to build decks around this guy. Like the effect, the ceiling is quite high. Anytime you can do damage and draw cards, it's super pushed. He is common, so that's, you know, I think that's, they're going to have enough opportunities to try to make this guy good. But at the end of the day, 2/3 for 4 is not good. So, and his benefit is conditional. So maybe you can exhaust them yourself. There are some cards that do that. That may be kind of cute. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna give this card a C plus. Just because the ceiling's so high and the roof isn't terrible. 2/3 for 4 is just kind of meh. Moving on. This is my favorite card. Rukuma Crowfeather, 4 cost, single threshold, Coyote Warrior, 2/4, Prophecy. When this enters play, the next troop in your deck gets +2/+2 and flight. Sold. If it's a Coyote, it gets Prophecy. It gets Wakuna's Prophecy. So, holy crap. This card just sits back and lives because he has 4 toughness. He's single threshold, so you can splash him, you can play him, even if you're not base Sapphire. If you're in Coyote, this is the best card in your deck. I mean, come on. Even if it just gives a 1/1, 2/2/2 in flight. It's a 3/3 flyer, man. Come on. Like, this card is so good, so dangerous, so powerful, so rare. Good point. Anyway, I love this card. B+. B+. I'm going to stand by this card all the way. This is probably the most overrated card. I'm the most biased towards cards like these, but I love it. It's synergistic, powerful. Moving on. Windborn Disciple, 2/2 for 3, single threshold, troop, necrotic mage, flight, basic shot, shift, flight. Okay, a 2/2 flyer for 3 is great. Even though it said double threshold, that's pretty good. The fact that it says single means it's going to make its way into more decks. The fact that it says common means that Sapphire is going to have a crap ton of flyers going around. That's awesome. The fact that you can shift for 1, your big dumb 4/5 that's just sitting there doing nothing. The fact that now it becomes like a dragon that can swing for 4 a turn. Holy crap, this card's good. I feel like this card should be uncommon. This card's quite good. I played with it. It was quite good. Especially if you can like revert. You have that revert champion, so now you're kind of giving everything flying because it gets to use its basic one-shot again. Card's insane. Really like it. B-. Wind Speaker. 1 cost. 1 threshold. Troop, Coyote Mage. Coyote Synergy. Uncommon. 1/1. Okay. This is a Tri-Shark card. For Wild, you can get ready another target troop. For Diamond, you can exhaust another target troop. So that's cool. It's like the ultimate utility card. You know, you get to like, I'm sure you're gonna want to exhaust or ready something that's gonna give you some kind of value every turn. Um, Now, what the heck? I don't. Is this card gonna make Wild Diamond Sapphire a thing? Like we've never even seen that those colors together. Probably not. Probably not. I think that setup cost is too high. I think that even if you do get there, it doesn't really win you the game. It just makes it a really useful troop. And when the times that you don't, it's just a 1/1 for one, and those are horrible. So that couple all those things together, I give this card a D plus. Woozly Wabbit. 3 cost, double threshold, troop, shapeshifter. Not a bunny, he's a shapeshifter. He's just currently in the shape of a bunny. Do not be fooled. Basic 1 shot, 3 cost. This gets attack and defense, each equal to target troops' attack and defense. Let me see if I understood that. So you basic 1 shot, then it says choose troop, then you choose the troop, and then it gets the power and toughness of that troop. Okay. Moving on. Basic 1 shot, 3 costs. This transforms into a copy of another target troop. Oh, okay. So this little 1/1 for 3 starts out under assuming, but if you have a board state, check it out. You can then gain the power and toughness to something else, gets that, then you can basically 1 shot again and just get the whole package of another troop. So like, God, it just I mean, you need a board state, but you take a turn off to play this, and then you take maybe your next turn and a half to make this thing ginormous, and copied. Just the fact what makes this card good is that it has two bullets. You know, it has two basic 1 shots. It's definitely like kind of feels like a construct because you kind of got to build it up, and you know, and it kind of requires a certain type of board state. You know, but even if you just did this with 2/2/2s, you know, that's what it's a 5/5 now. On the that you only really paid 3. I mean, effectively 9, but you know, it's on the installment plan, so it's not all at once. Kind of builds in some flexibility. This card's cool, man. I'm gonna overvalue this card because I just, you know, which is a little bunny hiding in the forest, just becomes a giant destroying thing. Huge cyborg card, no impact on its own, so I can't give it too high of a grade. But it's definitely fun, and I can't wait to play with them. I give it a C. So anyway, this concludes the limited set review. Thanks for all of you that stuck with it. This is going to be put on my YouTube channel. Probably throw it up on Reddit, and then also I'm going to put all my draft reviews on a website that's being created right now. We don't quite have the name for it yet. I'm thinking Top Deck Ninja. Right now it's Shards and Wards, but I don't think it's published yet. So anyway, that's going to be kind of the repository for all things limited. Like the whole website is just dedicated to limited and helping new players. So the set reviews will be on there, draft videos will be on there. Probably have multiple authors, and I'll introduce the founder owner as soon as we get it published. But he's a really cool guy and really cares about the community. So anyway, thanks a lot, and see you in the next review.